Welcome, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I am the Director of Business Development for GTS Distribution, and it's been a little while. We had a week off last week because of the UK Games Expo, but definitely appreciate everybody taking the time to join us here on another one of our retailer to publisher webinars. Today, I am joined by Jake Davis, who is the brand manager for The Op, formerly USA Opoly, or also known as USA Opoly. Many of you are probably very familiar with USA Opoly. They're one of the biggest publishers that we work with from GTS, one of the most consistent in terms of driving units that sell and sell quite a lot. So this should be a really good discussion. There's two main games we're going to talk about. You can see them both here on the camera in front of Jake. We got Thanos Rising, the Avengers Infinity War game. We also have Die Hard, the Nakatomi Plaza heist game, which I think I got
You got it right.
correct title. Yeah, there you go. Die Hard is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm looking forward to that discussion as well. So as always, just as a reminder for all the retailers who are joining us here, if you are here live, you're going to be eligible for a free demo copy of Thanos Rising. Your GTS sales rep will contact you about that, get everything set up to get that shipped out to you. If you have not, for some crazy reason, had this game in your store already, given all of the pomp and circumstance around Marvel and the movies that have been happening lately, this is a great game to have as a demo unit in your store. It is just very eye-catching with the miniature and the crystals and all these things going on. But I'm sure Jake will talk to you all about that as we get into it. But yeah, your GTS sales rep will contact you after the call. They'll let you know everything they can do to get that all set up for you. And just as appreciation for you all joining us live and taking time out of your day. With that, I always like to remind everybody, this is an open conversation. So while Jake will go through and talk a little bit about the games and some of the stuff from the op and maybe some questions that may come up around the branding changes and things like that, everything is on the table. Feel free to ask any kind of questions you'd like. If this is your first time using the Zoom software, it's actually very easy. You just have to take your mouse and hover over the main video window, and there is a little menu that will pop up at the bottom. There's a chat bubble that will come up, and if you click on that chat bubble, you'll have the option to either send a message to all the panelists, which will be myself, Jake, and Jessica Klansky, who's our sales director at GTS, or you can choose all panelists and attendees, and that will go to everyone, including all the other retailers that are here live, so everyone will be able to see your questions. Feel free to ask anything you'd like in there. We're happy to answer any kind of questions you got. But with that, Jake, I'm going to take my face that was made for radio and let it shut up, and I will let you start off and get going with all the awesome stuff you got there on the table.
Cool. Well, first off, thank you again for joining us. Really excited to talk about these games and kind of just discuss the op in general and what that means. So I'll kind of start there. So USA Opoly has been around for 25 years. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary. So with that, we're kind of we've been calling ourselves the op internally for a number of years. And because we're kind of shifting away from just more than some Hasbro games, you know, with our hits like Telestrations, Thanos Rising, Hogwarts Battle, you know, we're branching out of just the Hasbro titles, which, you know, a lot of people have recognized us for with the Opoly name. So we're kind of keeping true to our roots and not straying too far. So that's why we're the op now. So you'll see that in the logo above. And then, you know, at trade shows and everything, we've transitioned to a little bit of brighter colors and this new lockup of the op. So really excited about that for our 25th anniversary. So if anybody has any questions about that, please feel free to ask. So everything on our boxes will kind of transition to the op. So be sure to look for that. It's not a new company. We've been around. So yeah, just wanted to address that. So a couple games that we have here, Thanos Rising and Die Hard, are something that I want to touch on in terms of kind of products that we're promoting and going to be utilizing in the future. In that we really want to create immersive games. So taking an IP, taking a license, and trying to give the gamers and the audience and the fans just a really unique game so they can experience that license you know, from beginning to end. So like with Thanos, you know, this represents the Infinity War movie, the first movie of the Avengers, I guess, saga. So, you know, you're fighting Thanos, trying to make sure he doesn't get the Infinity Stones. Whereas like Die Hard, you know, you're playing through the 3 different acts of the movie, and it's riddled with quotes, and you know, you can kind of see some Christmas colors too. So, you know, we really try to bring the games to life, instead of just kind of utilizing some of the IPs, and running with it. So we try to give the most immersive games that we can. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop in. But I'm going to jump into Thanos Rising. So Nick, if we can kind of zoom in on Thanos, that would be great. So Thanos Rising is a cooperative dice rolling game where 2 to 4 players are playing to try to stop Thanos from collecting these Infinity Stones. So what you're going to be doing is rolling dice and trying to get different pairings to either acquire heroes or do damage to villains. So this game is very challenging in that you kind of need to have some lucky dice rolls in order to get what you want. But you're rolling dice, assigning them to cards. If you get the heroes, they come onto your team and are clean of all the damage that they've gotten hit by Thanos. And then, you know, you're all just taking turns trying to deal as much damage to these villains as possible. The goal for the heroes are to defeat 7 villains. That's the win condition for the heroes. And for the villains, or Thanos in this case, he can win 3 different ways. If he gets all 6 Infinity Stones on his gauntlet, then he wins. He snaps his finger, everybody goes to dust. We know that storyline. Or if 10 heroes collectively die, either on your team or around the board here, or if one hero's team dies altogether. So we have different hero boards with different heroes. Like you can play as Captain America, Gamora, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange. And we also have some promo packs that will allow you to play as Thor, which is pretty awesome. So if your team dies altogether, as in all the heroes on your team, then you lose. So 3 ways to lose, 1 way to win. Comes with some great custom sculpt dice, really cool Thanos miniature as well. It's just a beautiful game to display. You know, every time I take this to shows and demo it in front of people, they're really blown away by the custom detail of the game, the sculpt you get, and some high quality components. So it's a great game for any Marvel fan or anybody who really likes a good cooperative game, because this one will kick your butt, which is always good for a co-op game. So price point for this one, I should mention, $49.95. It's available now. You know, great thing to promote for all the different Marvel movies coming out. You know, you can kind of do a spin for the new Spider-Man movie coming out, when Captain Marvel hits DVD, even when Endgame hits. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Endgame hits DVD as the biggest movie, you know, pretty much of all time. Close to it. I don't think it's beaten Titanic yet. Somebody check me on that one. But yeah, so it's great because you have all the characters from the movie or from the whole series. You even got Hawkeye in here, Groot, you know, Hulkbuster, Drax, all the main characters. So ton of fun for any Marvel fan or non-Marvel fan in that case. Does anybody have any questions about Thanos Rising?
There's been no specific questions that have come in just yet, Jake. Just to remind everybody, if you joined a few minutes late, you can click the chat window, and if you hover over the main video area, you can click on the chat bubble, pull that up, and you can send messages to let us know about it. One of the things I want to tag on to that you'd mentioned about this, this game is both absolutely beautiful and it is really challenging. It's one of the things that I actually absolutely loved about this. I played this for the first time at Gen Con last year and sat down, and a lot of us going into it kind of had the opinion of, well, it's a Marvel game and it's some dice things, so we'll probably just, you know, go through this and we'll defeat Thanos and win the world and everything. And I think it was like turn 2 or turn 3, people were like, wait a minute, this is getting a little hard, like really quickly. And there's so many really good, interesting decisions to make in the game to mitigate your dice throws and change, you know, what teams have what heroes on them and who's going to draft who and who's going to draft what. It really took me by surprise personally as to how much strategy was in there around, okay, you should have these guys on your team, we should have these guys on this team. and it really made that cooperative piece of the game even better than most cooperatives. So obviously it's been very good seller for you since the Infinity War started for everything.
Yeah.
And as things just continue with the Marvel saga and continue to be good, I'm sure it's going to be one that stays on shelves for quite some time. But just wanted to add that to it because it's been a really good experience with it.
Yeah, no, it's a ton of fun. Yeah, and like you touched on the different combinations, and each hero has their own power, so it's kind of fun to pair them up and see kind of how you can recruit your biggest all-star team. Is kind of I call it. But I will say that some people do get carried away with that, and that they try to build this awesome team and forget to do damage to the villains, which is the goal of the game. So I've seen plenty of people lose that way, even though they have this awesome team. So beware of that if you guys end up playing it or talking about this game. So some quick pointers about this game. It's cooperative. It's a dice rolling game. It's no walk in the park. This is a difficult game, but it's littered with all of the MCU characters and some different locations and stuff like that. And this just really follows the storyline. So even on the back of the box, you can show the Thanos character, different heroes you can play as. There's some dice on there, so you're rolling dice, trying to get the different symbols to recruit heroes. So really fun, immersive game for anybody who likes a good co-op dice game. So if we don't have anything else on Thanos.
Yeah, no additional questions come in. Wouldn't surprise me, though. I think a lot of people have carried this in their store already, so it's just a good refresher and good timing, like you're talking about, right? This is Spider-Man Homecoming is kind of the official quote-unquote end to, phase 2 or phase 3. I don't even remember what phase we're in anymore. There's been so many Marvel movies. It's crazy. So, but yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, we can hop over to Die Hard if you'd like to yippee-ki-yay your way over there.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so with Die Hard, Nick, if you can kind of zoom in on the board over there.
We did just get a late question for Thanos, and this is probably one that a lot of retailers would probably ask about, especially since you did the Captain Marvel Secret Scrolls. Any chance of a Captain Marvel promo added or an expansion, given the popularity of the movie and the success of the movie?
Yeah, we are working on some more promos, so be on the lookout for that. As soon as we get more promos, I can't reveal what exactly they are, but we are working on a cool suite of promos. I think we're working on like 4 or 5. So those won't be out for a little bit just because of printing and approvals with Marvel and everything. But as soon as we have those out, we'll definitely make sure that GTS gets some. We have a retailer support program that I don't know if you guys are aware of. Scott, I don't know if you're aware of it in that. But we send out promo cards and different posters and stuff like that to retailers. So if you're not a part of that program already, we have been sending kits to GTS. It's about a quarterly system. We haven't done one this year just because we haven't really had any big titles to release yet. But we're gearing up for one probably at the end of the summer that we'll send out. So hopefully we can have some of these promos for Thanos Rising and some of our other games in that new batch of for our retailer support kit. So if you're not a part of the program, make sure you get with your sales rep to see how you can get one of those kits. And as soon as we have them, definitely want to get you the promos because they don't do us any good sitting us in the warehouse. And we want to drive traffic to, the retail stores so you guys can have something unique to the game. That's
the other thing too, whenever there are promos available through that, I know GTS's marketing team will put that up on the GTS Facebook page as well. So if you're not already following the GTS Facebook page, it's a great opportunity to get connected to that so you can get the information and the updates as they come out.
Sweet. Yeah, so then touching on the other Marvel game, we had Captain Marvel Secret Scrolls, which is a hidden identity game based on the Captain Marvel movie that was pretty popular earlier this year. It's the Bang mechanic, if you guys are familiar with Bang. But it's a really fun game that kind of fits that movie, as you don't know who's who at the table. You got to figure out who the Skrulls are and protect Captain Marvel if you're on her team, or take her out if you're a Skrull. So another good game that somebody mentioned in the chat. So cool there. All right. So going over to Die Hard now, unless there's anything else, Scott, interrupt me. Die Hard is a one versus many game where you are either playing as John McClane or playing as the thieves. So this surrounds the first movie of Die Hard. And as you can see on the board, we're not calling it a Christmas game or a Christmas movie, but you can decide for yourself or debate what kind of movie this is. Nonetheless, we have a lot of Christmas colors because we think it's a Christmas movie. So in this game, you're either playing, like I said, as John McClane or the Thieves. John is trying to get through 3 different acts by completing all the different objectives in the act. So the board actually folds out into 3 different ways. So it's kind of fun as John to complete an act, open it up, and then he completes the next act, and then you go to the roof. So I'm not going to go too much into the storyline because if you're familiar with Die Hard, this follows that same storyline. And if you're not familiar with Die Hard, I think it's time to go watch the movie because it's a pretty good movie. So as John, you're trying to move through the board to try to complete different objectives. And as thieves, you are trying to hack into the locks. I'm going to move Thanos for a second because he's in the way. You're trying to hack into these different locks to steal the money from the Nakatomi vault. So each player is going to have obviously different objectives. As John, you're going to be playing cards to either move around the board, to shoot, to push, to punch, different villains. And he's just trying to find these different items he needs, find a radio, find some shoes, find a machine gun so he can arm himself. While the thieves are trying to do damage to John McClane and also try to hack into these locks. So in order for the thieves to hack into these locks, they'll play 3 cards. So I don't know if you guys can see these cards, not really, but they have different numbers at the top. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's different numbers at the top. And when you play 3 cards, the 2 outside cards are going to be the locks that you can, or the combinations that you can use to start unlocking the lock. So in this case, it's a 7 and a 3. So we could put 2 markers on the 7 and the 3. And you can only put them on if they're adjacent to each other. So you kind of got to know as thieves what numbers you have left on the table so you can try to unlock as many locks as possible on your turn. And then the middle card would be your action. So in this case, the action would be punch, shoot, shoot. So you need to be in the range of John to punch him and shoot him. If you're in 1 square, then you can punch him. But if you have an open square, then you can start shooting him. And when you start doing damage and drawing blood, John will actually discard some cards from his hand. And this is one way John can lose, is if he doesn't have any more cards to draw. Any cards he plays will go on to the next round, the next act if he survives. So as John, you kind of want to be aware not to go through acts too quickly because then you won't have enough cards to move on to the next act. Each act does have their own unique deck, but any cards that you take from Act 1 and move to Act 2, they're actually more powerful than just the Act 2 cards because John's gotten a little bit stronger. He's kind of figured out the terrorist plan a little bit, so he kind of knows what's going on. So it just plays through 3 acts. On the back of the box, it actually does outline the 3 different boards essentially that you get. So, in Act 1, you'll play John is gonna, I can't say always, but he's gonna survive the first act, more often than not. Even the second act and the third act is kind of where, you get into the suspense and the intensity kind of like the movie. So kind of the first 2 acts, John's just roaming around trying to find stuff, do damage to some of these thieves as he sees them. And then the third act opens up to the roof where John has to kind of shoot up in the air to move the hostages off the roof and then grab the fire hose and actually swing back down into the lower level and then defeat Hans Gruber. So Hans shows up in Act 3 and you actually have to defeat him to win the game. So a lot of fun. This game is designed to be the length of the movie. So if you play out all 3 acts, I believe the movie is like an hour and a half, hour 45. So that's about how long the game will take. So we've tried to feel like you can either watch the movie and play the game at the same time, or just really live the experience as John and the thieves did in the movie. So, ton of fun. I like to play it as the thieves or as John. You know, you can play as, I mean, different games, of course, but it's fun to switch it up because your roles are totally going to change from one game to the next as a thief or as John, naturally. And it is, I don't know, this is just one of the more immersive games that I feel like we've come out with in a while, because it just stays true to that story so well.
There's a great question from Leslie real quick. Are the miniatures 28 millimeters, or what size are they? And are all the thieves in the same pose, or are there different poses amongst the different characters?
No, so all the thieves are in the same pose.
Okay.
Good question on the size. You're gonna stump me there.
Leslie wins a bonus
Leslie
point.
I don't know what the size is. And
You
of course,
look-
we don't list it.
We will find out.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one. They're pretty small though. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see these at all, but I mean,
They
they're
look
not
to
big enough,
be.
that's for sure.
So I know the crystals that are in Thanos Rising are 25 millimeters. Don't ask me why I know that, but I know that. So they're about that size, somewhere around 25, 28 millimeters. It looks like for the miniatures. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're pretty small. John has different pose. Hans also has a different pose. So I'll see if I don't know if we can zoom in on these guys, Nick, but anyway, we have some images online too if you guys want to check them out.
Yeah, it's coming through actually really good right there. Yep.
Cool.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out, back in, I think, correct me if I say anything wrong here, Jake, I believe that Harry Potter, the Hogwarts Battle, the deck building game came out in 2016. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember when that came out, having a couple of conversations with people at USAopoly, now the Op, but USAopoly then, and being absolutely blown away by the game because it was just such a good game, regardless of the thematic or the IP and the license attached to it. And I remember having a discussion at that point and telling John, and I said, this is where you guys kind of have your fork in the road. And you're not just making games that have an IP on them, but you're making games that are for the IP. And that's a completely different avenue and a different way to go down. And ever since then, pretty much every game you guys have released, right? And you can see several of them just in the back shot here. You've got the Harry Potter dueling battle coming out. You've got the Fantastic Beasts dice game. You've got Batman Talisman coming out. It's almost like USAopoly or the Op has taken a new step up in terms of raising the bar that, look, we're not just satisfied with making a game that has a license attached to it. We want to provide a game that is truthfully driving this like amazing experience, right?
Right.
For me, I've played Thanos Rising probably 7 or 8 times. And every time, whether you win or whether you lose, there's these stand-up moments, which are the big things that I say are really easy to sell games, right? When you can give people that moment of that one die roll or that one decision or that one thing that's going to make everything be the success or be the failure, you get these amazing moments that create memories. So I have to say that, like I said before at the beginning of the call, the Op is one of the biggest partners that we work with on GTS's side, and it's no surprise really to me, given what you guys have done in the last 3 years in terms of building your brand to be much more than just a company that has access to IPs, but a company that's making great games based for those IPs. So I think that's a really good thing for retailers to know.
Yeah, totally. And thank you for pointing that out and saying that. Yeah, I love those moments of, I remember from Hogwarts Battle, one decision can totally throw your game. Same with Thanos and even same with Die Hard. So we try to make it, as exciting with the IP, but also, give some great game mechanics. And our design team and our content team is absolutely wonderful in kind of being experts in that license and that IP, and just trying to figure out how we can make the best game possible with, with a great storyline that fans already resonate with. So it's been awesome to, on my side, to promote some of these games and, work with different retailers and even talk to consumers and just share, the joy that people have for these games and some great gaming moments, and how these games can be great gateway games too for other hobby games. If you're a fan of Marvel, and maybe you haven't, broken the way into the hobby world, this can be a great gateway game, so you can figure out what are other great cooperative dice rolling games, or what are just other great thematic games. Even with Hogwarts Battle, what are great deck building games. With Die Hard, what are other one versus many games? How can I experience this in a different world than just in the license? So utilizing our IPs and our partnerships with our licensors, to kind of spread the awareness of the hobby game world, with some great games. So
yeah, it was interesting. I just had this conversation this morning with somebody about the new to me factor. There was someone that I had met on vacation last week. I was over in England last week.
Nice.
Completely random, nothing to do with the board game industry.
Yeah.
Met the person, started talking to them, told them what I did, and they started asking me questions about things like Mice and Mystics and games that, the non-gamer that you run into, you think they're usually going to, mention some of the more traditional games like, Sorry or Monopoly and things like that. And it was very interesting to me that this person knew many of the hobby games that a lot of us and retailers and publishers know, but they had no idea about the UK Games Expo. They had no idea about Gen Con. They had no idea about the community of board gaming. They just knew, well, I have my friendly local game store and I go buy my games there and I play with my friends. So it was really interesting to me. And we had this conversation this morning about how there's always an opportunity from a retail perspective to have that new to me moment, right? So if people come in and they're looking around your store and you or a staff member says, hey, what kind of things you guys like? What are you interested in? Somebody says, oh, we're big Marvel fans or big movie buffs or anything like that. It's just an easy segue to lean in and say, well, not only do we have these games that are based on these licenses, but they're also really great games, and here's why, right? And that just leads them to coming back and buying more games. So that's perfect timing for that discussion. So
yeah. We've definitely leveraged our partnership with our Hasbro brand. If you can see the Rick and Morty, Monopoly and Trivial Pursuit. So we've leveraged our great partnership with Hasbro, and our licensors, to try to create more games with, than just what is in our portfolio. Even with, partnering with Steve Jackson and our Munchkin games, or Czech games and Code Names, or DiBiocchi with Bang. We're trying to broaden the reach, to reach as many people as possible with licensed thematic games, to kind of bridge that gap and the new to me factor, to bring more people into the hobby world, because we all know it's a great world. Sit around a table, experience, go on an adventure together instead of being on our phones or watching TV or something like that. So I love promoting that. I love that we as a company give great experiences to fans, and even as an industry, give great experiences to all of the different wonderful adventures that consumers can go on, in their night. So it's a lot of fun.
That is a great point. You guys do a great service to the fans and let them, take something that they love and love it in a completely different way, because you're providing them something, beyond the movie or beyond the television show or anything like that. I did just realize, as you were saying that by the end of this year, that means you will have everything from Snow White to Batman to John McClane and everything in between, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's quite a portfolio that our team's been able to acquire, and we just really want to give fans the best games possible, and then most importantly, games that will sell and that will resonate off the retail shelf. So.
Yep, and that's a good reason as to why you're here. So we do appreciate it. There are no additional questions that have come in, so I think that actually kind of covers everything, unless there's anything additionally you wanted to bring up at all, Jake.
No, not at all. I will say though, Die Hard is coming out in July.
Yep.
So be sure to either pre-order it or get it when it comes out. We're going to be featuring this game at Gen Con as well, doing some fun activations with Die Hard, and we'll have demo tables. So for anybody who goes to Gen Con and hasn't played it yet or wants to check it out or just kind of see what this game is about, you can definitely stop by our booth there and see it. Otherwise, be sure to either follow us on social media, and I know GTS as well has been posting a lot of stuff that we share on Facebook. So, yeah.
That does bring up a good question. If people do have any additional questions after the webinar, what's the best way for them to reach out and get a hold of someone at USAopoly? Do you guys have like an info at mailbox or a support at mailbox for retailers or anything like that?
Yeah, you can reach us at sales@usaopoly.com. That's probably the best place that we can kind of funnel that email.
Okay.
Sales@usaopoly.com.
Awesome. Cool. I just put that in the chat. We'll make sure to get that into the recorded version of the video as well. So great.
And then I will note too, I talked to Scott about this earlier. With the new brand, we have transitioned to a new website. So our new website is theop.games. If you still type in usaopoly.com, you will be redirected to that site. But for anybody that is wanting new information or wants to direct to the new site, it's theop.games. So no .com, it's just theop.games. A little more unique in that front, but it's kind of cool.
We're starting to see more and more people go to a .games domain. So that's cool to see you do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, we really want to thank all the retailers for taking the time to, sit down and listen and learn about both of these games and the entire portfolio. I'm a firm believer that a retailer who's starting today could start their entire store with just the USAopoly.
Yeah, seriously.
There's so many different options and things that speak to different consumers. So it's really, really good stuff. We're seeing a couple of comments come in here right now where people are like, I can't wait for Die Hard. I can't wait for Die Hard. Yeah, if you can't wait, pre-order it. Like Jake said, it is available. I had put the part numbers at the very beginning of the chat session there. So if anyone wants to, you can reach out to your sales rep. You can pre-order that today. Thanos Rising, as we mentioned, is in stock. And anyone who is here live for the webinar, you're going to be able to get a free demo copy of that as well. Just as a reminder, nothing for you to do on that one. Your sales reps will contact you and get that all coordinated so that you'll be able to get it. Again, just a gift from us and USAopoly to you for joining us here for the webinar. With that, Jake, thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's a very crazy time right now with Astra happening and Origins happening and so many different things. It feels like everybody's being pulled in 9 different directions, but really do appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to everybody about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and happy to talk with you guys.
All right, everyone, have a great week in your stores. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.